This is Australia's prettiest theme park. SeaWorld Australia is located in Surfers Paradise on the Gold Coast of Australia. The park is positioned on a piece of land that puts them right in the middle of two big bodies of water, one of them being the Coral Sea, which literally carries out into the South Pacific. What makes for some stunning views when you're at the top of any one of SeaWorld's thrill rides. The park is home to 4 roller coasters, including the new for 2022 wooden coaster Leviathan. I'm not going to talk too much about that ride here, however, there is already a full separate review of Leviathan up on the channel. Please go check it out, because it is the best ride here and is worth doing. There's also a full separate video up talking about Jet Rescue, which is another fantastic roller coaster here. SeaWorld opened its gates in 1971, so it's over 50 years old, and as you can probably guess by the name, they are a marine park. So in addition to rides, you also have a bunch of animal exhibits. This includes polar bears, penguins, jellyfish, dolphins, seals, sharks, you name it. There's so much to see and do here, and so this is going to be my full in-depth look at the park. I'm going to tell you about what you can expect, hopefully give some good tips. We'll walk through the layout. We got a lot to cover. So first of all, I have to mention, being from the United States, I of course was familiar with the 3 SeaWorld parks that we have here in Orlando, San Antonio, and San Diego. But every once in a while, I heard about the SeaWorld park that is down in Australia. Interestingly enough, this park is not at all related to that American company. SeaWorld Australia is operated by Village Roadshow, the same people who run Warner Brothers Movie World and Wet n Wild. I know a lot of people get them mixed up because they have the same name, but the key is that this is Sea Space World, not SeaWorld, one word. But I was excited to get down here, especially after they opened up Leviathan. That was the final push I needed to visit, and overall, I had a fantastic time. Now, during my time on the Gold Coast, we were staying in Surfers Paradise, so we just took a bus directly to the park. It was super easy. The station is literally right next to the main parking lot. And one thing that I love is because this area is so flat, you can see the SeaWorld skyline from like miles away. And that's why likewise, when you're on any of the rides at SeaWorld, you also get fantastic views of Surfers Paradise. Now, when you arrive on property at SeaWorld, you have a couple different options of things that you can do before you even enter the park. Directly next to the main gate are the departure locations for 2 big Gold Coast attractions, river cruises and helicopter tours. I'd heard great things about the cruises. Unfortunately, I didn't get the opportunity to experience one, but they have options for whale watching, depending on the time of year, as well as dining, and no matter which you pick, you just get fantastic views. The helicopter tours, as of right now, unfortunately are closed after a tragic accident occurred earlier this year. It resulted in a crash, killing several individuals. Super sad. At this time, we don't know whether or not these will be returning. It was absolutely horrible what happened, but I know prior to this, they were very popular. But I think it's also important to know that these companies are not directly affiliated with SeaWorld, so just something to keep in mind if you're looking to expand your stay. You want to do a couple days here. I absolutely would have done the river cruise if I had more time. The other thing that is right outside of this park is an on-site hotel. And that's because SeaWorld is a big resort, and everything's connected. Once you're on property, you don't have to leave. We had a chance to walk around the hotel, and we're just blown away by how nice it was. There's multiple restaurants, a bar, game room, beautiful views of the water, and it bumps up against the back of the park, so anytime you want, you just walk across this tiny street and boom, you're in. The other option that was available is they had a monorail that connects the hotel at the back of the park up to the very front. The problem is, it has been standing but not operating, which means if you want to go there, you have to walk. And something you need to know about SeaWorld, it isn't very wide, but it's very long. Getting from the front of the park to the back of the park will take some time, so you're going to get your steps in when you're here, which is actually a nice contrast to a park like Movie World, which I would actually say is relatively small. So, let's talk about this layout. Starting first off with the entrance. Actually pretty small and low-key. Architecturally, it actually reminded me of the Grand Floridian Hotel at Walt Disney World. Kind of the same architecture style. I think more so though, it's meant to resemble like a fisherman's lodge, like something that you'd find out on the bay. Very simple but effective. You pass under that sign and you get this grand vista view of Thunder Lake, Leviathan. You can see Trident and Vortex off in the distance. This walkway is actually sloped, so you start higher up than the rest of the park. There's a gift shop and some snack stands up there, as well as seating for their big show. There's periodically a stunt show out on the lake, which features some awesome stuff on jet skis, wakeboards, water skis. Everyone who's a part of that is super talented. We caught some of it and we're really impressed. Although it definitely can be a little corny at times. So let's start getting into the meat of the park. One of the first things you're going to see is a big Nickelodeon sign. Yes, they have the license to Nickelodeon. You're going to see some characters walking around. That could include SpongeBob, the Ninja Turtles, Paw Patrol, and they have rides there themed to them as well. It's primarily their kids section. The smallest of the 4 coasters here is a Zamperla gravity coaster themed to SpongeBob at boating school. I like this Patrick jellyfish ride. The only downside is this whole area is relatively cramped, especially since it's also a main walkway, so there's just a lot of guests walking through here. But the good news is, once you start getting towards the back of the park, the pathways are wider and there's less people because there aren't as many rides. It's mostly exhibits towards the back. They kind of put most of the rides up front, I believe, because of noise. But that isn't to say that there aren't exhibits up front. Like the penguin and jellyfish exhibit are actually right up there on the left when you're walking in. The other main section that's right up there towards the front is, of course, Atlantis. This is the newest expansion to SeaWorld. They've been working on this for quite some time, and it is really cool. The stylization in this land is awesome. The views of Leviathan are fantastic. Trident is a small little fun ride too. Great views around. It's not a huge area, but that's almost purely because of space. They don't have a ton of land to work with, which actually makes me a little concerned about how they're going to grow in the future. Like, I would love to see a large steel coaster here that isn't a water coaster, but I don't know if they have room for it. They could probably fit in something that's very compact like a Skyrocket too, but real estate is absolutely valuable here. Even though SeaWorld felt big, most of that is in the form of exhibits for like dolphins and sharks, you know? But I mentioned the water coaster. That ride is called Storm. Has some really nice theming in this building here. The story behind it is relatively simple. You're escaping a storm. You go up a lift hill, around some turns, and then down a drop. That's it. It's short, but it's well done. You even get a little bit of airtime over it, so I liked it. Next to it is a log flume. However, it's not a log flume that you can currently ride because it has been standing but not operating for years, and as of recently is just starting to get demolished. In terms of expansion, this is actually one thing that I would prioritize if I were in charge, is bringing back the log flume in some form, or at least finding a suitable replacement, because I think that's long overdue. But I mean, to be honest, that's pretty much it in terms of rides that I wanted to talk about. There's definitely limited options here in the thrills department. What they have is good. There's no bad rides here. But what makes SeaWorld a full-day park is how much else there is to see. Like, I absolutely recommend checking out some of the shows. We popped into their seal stadium for a bit where we got to see a very campy and corny show with some seals. It was adorable. It's in the same exact style of like Clyde and Seymour's show at the SeaWorld parks in the US. So all good fun. I'd be willing to bet that most times when you pop by one of these animal exhibits, there'll be someone there talking about the animal. It's a great educational experience. And if you don't mind taking it one step further, there's also many cool upcharge experiences that you can do here. This includes scuba diving. You could go snorkeling. They have glass bottom boats here over the shark exhibit. You pet a penguin, swim with dolphins, and more. I didn't really know that going in for the first time, and I wish I had because I totally would have done something like this. Whenever I go back, because I absolutely will return here one day, I definitely want to do something like that. Now, in terms of food, there's a big food court here right next to that seal stadium that I talked about earlier. There's a lot of different options there. We ordered some burgers, and to be honest, they were just okay. The fries that came with them were terrible. Luckily, we did get French fry redemption later on when we got loaded fries over by Leviathan later on. That was probably the best thing we ate while at SeaWorld. So it seems like the food here is very much hit or miss. The biggest recommendation I can give is actually to just beware of the seagulls, because they are everywhere, and yes, they will try and steal your food. We saw it happen multiple times throughout the day, and honestly, it was hilarious, but I would have been pretty mad if it happened to me. Last thing I want to talk about specifically is their Carnival event. So this goes on during select times throughout the summer. It's a separate ticketed event that takes place at night because SeaWorld is not usually open past like 5 or 6 o'clock. But this is one way that you can experience night rides, see everything lit up, and the vibe was amazing. I loved all the street performers. There was a nighttime show, and it was so hype. There were lights, fireworks, lasers, fountains, music, fire, everything. It was a full package experience with everything happening all at once, and what a way to end out our night. The only downsides I'll give is that event was crazy popular. It was so busy, definitely overcrowded for being a separate ticketed event. I think the main problem with it is that they didn't empty out the park first before letting everyone come in for Carnival. You're just given a wristband, but they weren't checking wristbands if you were in the park. So if you just stayed, you technically would have been fine, and I don't think that's how it's supposed to be. So I don't want to say I had any negative experiences here, but I definitely wasn't thrilled with that part. But in conclusion, I was so surprised visiting SeaWorld. I didn't expect it to be my favorite theme park in Australia, but it absolutely was. It is beautiful and there is so much to see and do. I think if you were in full relaxation mode and you didn't want to rush, because of how short the park hours usually are, I think you could make this a 2-day park if you want to. You stay on site, you do some of the other upcharge experiences, take your time with the animals, there's good rides here. It'd be a really nice time. Everything at the park was well kept. It honestly reminded me of a SeaWorld entertainment park, like the company that we have in the US. The vibe was similar, and I mean that as a compliment. There's so many shows going on. Even if there weren't as many attractions, I think you could easily spend a full day here and not ride anything. I believe that SeaWorld Australia is the most complete of the 3 parks on the Gold Coast. The other 2 are currently in the middle of some pretty big changes. I think once they finish their expansions, they might be able to take like the official title of best park on the Gold Coast. But as of right now, I think SeaWorld felt the best, which is ironic because I feel like for a long time that was probably not the case because that Atlantis project took so long to get completed. You know, the continent of Australia may not be home to a ton of theme parks. There's actually only 5 that have 3 or more roller coasters. But SeaWorld stands as easily the nicest, and I imagine it's gonna stay that way for a while. Again, the only big issue I have with it is I think that it's gonna be hard for them to expand going forward. I hope I'm wrong, but I think they are gonna have to get creative if they want to add some more thrills. Frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if when I come back to Australia, this park feels like almost the exact same. I think that's fine, especially since the other 2 are gonna feel really different. But it's about keeping your options open, you know? There's so much to do on the Gold Coast. SeaWorld is an excellent place I would highly recommend spending your time at. There's great rides, awesome exhibits. You can tell that the people here really care. They treat their animals well. There's a lot of love and passion going into this park. So let me know down in the comments below if you've visited SeaWorld Australia, what you think of it, if you agree with the points that I brought up. If you think there's anything I missed, be sure to let me know down in the comments. And of course, stay tuned for more park reviews here at Coaster Studios, and I'll see you next time.